Just like now, I can see. mais ça doit être déjà écrit en anglais. Comment ça? On s'installe comment
Even more extreme, you get like if you log in because in Google they just have bookings, they don't have
Directeur.
then you see
Directeur.
in team
On fait une team Vista Print et une
because
team
they're looking at the top line, not the bottom line.
avec moi ici.
So,
Ok, tu prends un micro
at the camera, yeah,
Ça sera pour toi. Je sais pas pourquoi il marche pas. C'est bon, Damien?
So all the business cards, it will maximize across them.
Si? Ça va venir? Ça va venir? Damien? Let's go, Damien. Bonsoir à tous. On va commencer cette soirée. Et nous allons peut-être la faire en anglais du coup, parce que nous sommes avec Drew. Drew est anglais ici, donc du coup nous allons parler en anglais. Et si vous avez besoin de revoir en français, nous ferons des traductions en français. Enfin maintenant avec les outils, il n'y a pas trop de problème. Nous accueillons ce soir du coup Mouloud qui vient de Vista Print avec Drew et Kristina de Alan. Et bien sûr vous tous qui êtes en live ici. Nous avons plusieurs caméras ici. Ce que je vous propose avant de commencer, c'est de faire un petit tour de table. Peut-être de commencer par toi, Kristina, et puis ensuite, derrière, on va...
We switch to English.
Yes,
right?
let's go in English.
Yes. Hi everyone, I'm Kristina. I have been working for Alan, health tech, insurtech company in Paris for 3 years in the product marketing team. And last year, my full focus became AI, artificial intelligence, basically how we use it internally and how we share things that we do externally. So that's what I'm gonna talk to you about today.
Okay, thank you. And you, Drew?
My name's Drew. I've been with Vistaprint for about 3 years now. Live in Barcelona. At the minute, where Mouloud and I are leading the marketing optimization domain within Vistaprint, within Vista Engineering. We'll do an introduction, a formal introduction to Vistaprint and the company and stuff. My role is as a data product lead, so basically trying to make sure that we have the right data products to fit the market's needs. And pass over to you, Mouloud.
Yes, quick introduction. So yeah, Mouloud, as a lot of what Drew said, but from the engineering side, so I'm engineering lead. What it means for us is leading all the data scientists, data engineer, analytics engineers, all the ones that basically make the magic happen for our marketing team. We'll probably get into that in the presentation in a bit, but also happy to come back here. I worked here at Xavier at the time, and to meet a lot of people that I've known in the past. So I'm excited about this event. Thank you, François.
Thank you, very welcome. Just before beginning, I will make a little reminder about an event that we are organizing the 31 of March. This is the AI Product Day. And the AI Product Day is not, yes, it's the event about the very first conference that we were doing with the product team, and it's dedicated to the people who want to fully exploit the AI. So I think you will be concerned as well. There is three main acts. The first is how to make AI in product, the AI for the product, and the AI for the organization. So you will have a whole experience during the whole day, like 20 speakers for the main track and 2 dedicated space where you can speak. And we have already some speaker. I don't know if it's moving yet. Like, I have to click maybe. Yes. So we already have some speaker that will talk about during this conference. The speaker with PayFit, with INRIA, with the Tristan of Découvrez discipline. So we have already a good lineup, and if you want to come, obviously you can take your tickets to be ready the 31 of March in Paris. And there will be also French track and English track. So we will have an international experience during this day. So that is a reminder of it. To begin, thank you again to be here, and we will, I think, begin with you, and then we will ask some questions together. Yeah?
I have prepared a couple of slides just to introduce how at Alan we see AI specifically for the marketing team. So overall, of course, we see it as a whole new world, and we talk a lot about how AI reinvents marketing, specifically when it comes to operational efficiency. So overall, I think one of the biggest myths that I hear when I'm asked about AI marketing is that, yes, okay, I already use AI for copywriting, but definitely that's just one of the use cases, and it's not all. So we see at Alan really huge improvement when it comes to all the type of the marketing things we do, starting from the research, for example, looking for internal, external information, then of course creating both content and images at scalable and cost-efficient manner, and then increasing the quality of the deliverables with a better outcome, and of course distributing it at scale for example, for our sales team and making our stakeholders more autonomous. But then we also believe that AI helps marketing to be more performant, meaning increasing our impact. And how? It's actually by helping us to be more data-driven, for example, analyzing its insights at scale and understanding better what works, what doesn't, and at the same time also personalizing our campaigns, our messaging to our audience. And that's something that is becoming more and more easier as well. For example, changing the website as according to the person with the technology. And of course, the last one, and probably the most important one, is that AI allows us, marketers, to be much more creative. And that really unlocks the potential. And we believe that when working with AI, with machines, we could really focus things on the more value-added creation of something that wouldn't have been real before. Some examples that are reality at Alan already for a long time. I think this video about the content creation and more than cutting by half creating SEO articles was already recorded like 2 years ago, like when just ChatGPT started. And as you see, it is not really necessary to have dedicated AI tools to start leveraging AI. There are many tools, even with GPT. For example, here you see example of the GPT add-on that allows you to save your prompts and adapt a bit the environment, for example, to prepare content briefs in a scalable manner. At Alan, we do have a dedicated setup for AI with the Dust, AI that is implemented for all the internal databases and knowledge that, of course, helps. And for example, today for creating articles, content, anything, testimonials, definitely my go-to place is this Dust Assistant, because it already knows the tone of voice, it already has information to the previous materials, and it helps me to produce content in a very efficient manner in less than a couple of hours to have something ready, and even to do it, as you see, in French, which is not my native language. And at the same time, we also, for example, use specific assistants like a brand check. At Alan, we decentralize a lot content creation. We have engineers who are writing blog posts, and again, we provide them assistance so they could improve their writing, make it more Alan style, and sound like it's one person who's actually writing it. Second example is around being more data-driven with analyzing customer insights. That was my use case that I was trying to crack for a long time, because one of my goals was to track the performance of our narrative and of our product, just to better understand what is actually resonating to prospects, what is resonating to customers. And at acquisition, with customers, we do use AI tools to record the calls, for example, like Mojo, and that leaves us with a huge amount of transcripts that could be analyzed, while the tools internally, they already do a great job by sporting some trends. Still, it's not there yet to go deeper. For us, we really wanted to understand the frequency of mentions. We wanted to really understand the specific quotes and understand better what we should push for. And with AI, we managed really to analyze, to build systems that allow us with one click to extract the insights on narrative, on pitch, on competition from specific transcripts. And as you see, it really reduces a lot. It still requires checks, it still requires some transporting, but it reduces a lot the manual work that was done first by me in a really manual manner. And today, all stakeholders can access it autonomously. What do we mean? Meaning that the product area lead can just go and ask for example, narrative insights on the enterprise segment and receive what resonated most in terms of the product during the last month. And same can be done by sales crew lead who could ask the same question around the objections and how we can enable the team better. And then, of course, creativity. As you see at Alan, we love these brand images, and it's all AI created. So overall, we have implemented already more than a year ago image generation at scale. That's a tool that we developed by ourselves using existing models to generate our brand mark marmots in different environments, which is very easy and accessible to all the Alaners who can simply write the context that they want, and they will receive the image, which is used a lot by everyone, by sales to personalize the communication, by marketing for content creation. And as you see, the quality is, again, improves a lot with the time. We really believe that generative AI allows us to go very fast from idea to realization. For example, to see in practice how certain deliverables would look without investing any extra time to it. And we believe that everyone, not even marketers, can become creative mini studios who could actually test it straight away in a very fast manner. For example, that's a very easy framework that we use and we recommend it. We shared across the whole company. So more than 200 people already tried to do this by creating a specific ad in 5 minutes with AI. So we really start with an idea. Again, sometimes AI can help, sometimes it could be your idea. And then elaborating the image that you want to get with AI. Again, AI can help us to get the better image, generating this image, transforming the image to the video, adding the music, and putting it all together in Canva, and then ending up with a beautiful 5-minute video. And here is just a quick example how it could be done. So we have an assistant that provides us a good prompt based on a small description. And straight away you receive different options, how many you want of the image based on your prompt. And you could easily transform this image to the video, again with the tools available to everyone, and add the music, again with the tools available to everyone, and of course put it all together to have a beautiful campaign. So that's already reality. We use it a lot. We love to play. For example, last month I have organized a hackathon for marketing team where we just split. We had one product launch and we split in teams to create this type of marketing assets at scale. And as you see, we already use it a lot in production. So what we see is that AI created ads today, they're already almost 20% of total ads that we have. They are definitely less costly and they are more performance. So definitely that's a direction that we want to go. And the last example I want to share is that also we can use AI, and we already started to use AI to make marketing more personalized. The last campaign that we have done by ourselves, not sure it's working, maybe you can press. Yeah, so the last campaign that we have done is providing our prospects, customers, and members opportunity to actually leverage our AI for image generation to create targeting postcards with New Year wishes for anyone whom they want. And as you see, then later share that with the prospect. That really gained a lot of traction. We got more than 20,000 page visits in 3 weeks and more than 8,000 postcards generated. And I think this is just a beginning. We really want to scale this type of campaigns that would actually allow our members and customers to play with the technology and to make them feel part of this new journey. And to finalize, we really think, and I hope I showed you that AI is not replacing humans. It really enhances our collaboration. It allows us to focus on the things of our marketing job that we like, that we actually enjoy doing, that adds value. Also, it allows us to improve impact business-wise by personalizing at scale, by improving the performance of the ads, and enhance our creativity to play with these things. And if to give advice for those who are starting implementing AI, it's really something that you see on this curve around expectation and reality. It's a lot of uncertainty, and definitely there will be many challenges. Like, for example, with launching this new AI campaign, as you could imagine, we did learn a lot about the legal aspect and how actually there are so many blockers on using AI and giving members tools to play with AI. But again, that's, I think, learning curve experience that is continuous, and there is nothing to do but to face it and to take this spirit of exploration and resilience that I think curiosity is the quality that is super important and really what we try to advocate in marketing team and beyond at Alan. And in the end, I think the most important one, we shouldn't forget that AI is just a tool, same as all others. And in the end, it's not about AI at all. It's really about the what you do with it. And for us, what we want is to improve experience for our members, for our customers, so they would see why Alan in the end is the company that they want to choose as the partner for their employees, for their health and well-being. That's it on my side. I don't know if you want to do questions now or we do later.
Oh, yes, we will.
If there is
Answer
any questions.
I do have a question. Thanks for
There you
sharing.
go.
You feel like you explored a lot of the ideas that we have. But one question is, because one challenge we're also facing is just how do you check quality, right? Especially at scale. I feel like from what I understand, you opened it internally. We want people to play, to understand, and you even 20% you said of the ads. So do you have any kind of mechanism or process just to like check that ads are on brand or whatever quality standards that you have in place here?
Yes, actually, I think it's a very important point that as of today, we do not have fully run AI marketing. So there is always a person who is checking things. So we don't just push to production without someone human actually making a call if it's worth or not. It could be very light, it could be just a check, it could be a review, but still I think AI, I don't think is fully there to just let it wild, even though we saw some of the experiences when it happened and it worked, but not at Alan. I think we want to minimize risks for now, but maybe it will come another time.
Thank you.
Yeah, we had an interesting experience where Vistaprint has a very varied product catalog, and we changed the background in like 3,000 product images, and we didn't have a way to QA that at scale, so we ended up with our creative team having to QA it, and we actually wondered about should we ask another AI to do the QA of the the first image generation. But it does seem like that's one of the challenges right now is the actual generation is very quick. Trying to make sure that it's high quality is there's still a role of the marketer in that sense.
And I think in the campaign that we did around when we gave the access to members around the healthy postcard, so-called, I think it was a part about embracing that there might be some things that I don't know, the marmot with 7 fingers, we cannot control it. So if you want to go wild, then there is a risk that we have to take. But when it comes to the content and actual things that are, I think, important, what is for me in the end, the fault is on us. Like, for example, when the salesperson is asking for the product information and AI gives the wrong guidance because the data is not up to date, it's not AI who's guilty, it's in the end the salesperson who didn't cross-check the information or didn't, or product marketing team who didn't update the documentation.
On that note, have you seen, we see like job titles now like prompt engineers, and almost like that's becoming a career path to actually, it's funny because I used to be a developer and we used to talk about Google Foo, right? And being able to leverage Google and Stack Overflow, things like that. Now it seems like it's a lot about how do you ask the right questions, or how do you like engage in the right conversation with the with the AI. Have you had to do a lot of training internally on that, or did people just pick it up? Did it become second nature?
I think it's a bit different setup, because I mean, if for example you have AI, everyone is using GPT, but you don't have a specific assistant. That's one setup where actually people should know the basics of prompt engineering and they should understand how to ask better questions. For us, it's a different setup because we rely on assistants. So with Dust, basically we create assistants that people use. So there are people who create assistants, those who actually need to be trained on the AI prompt engineering. And normally it is a reference or AI reference of the community. Anyone can create an assistant, so you don't need to be a reference, so anyone has a right to create, but we do control the distribution to the wider audience. So if you want to play around and test, you can create one, but if you want to roll it out to the whole company, say, okay, guys, from tomorrow, I created an assistant to assess questions on the interview, there actually is a process to go through to control the quality and obviously to improve the prompt based on the tips from the experts. I personally think that it's a great skill to improve for everyone, at least in the marketing community, because we do so many, I think the specifics of marketing community is that we have very different jobs, different tasks. For sales community, for example, we had a dedicated team with working on the AI. They mapped the processes, they really had the use cases, so it was very clear. And once the job is done, then you could just start using and improving based on the feedback, and it's fine. But for marketing, at least my perception is that the more programs, projects you have, the more potential use cases you discover, and you need to actually build more assistants that would help you. Yeah.
I just have a question. I don't know if you can share, and if you can, that's fine. But it just on the underlying AI that you're using, You showed ChatGPT. I don't know. Do you have like a set of different models or
Yeah.
AIs?
So the solution that I refer to, so basically we have implemented it 1.5 years. So basically this is the platform between our internal data and external models, all of them. So basically to access this information in a secure manner. It was us, basically when it was started, there was a dedicated implementation team, multidisciplinary, who was deciding which sources to implement there first. Definitely the databases from like Notion, that is our go-to information hosting, then Slack, which is communication, G Drive, so everything that is around specific content, but not something that is data sensitive. For example, member data, definitely it's not there. So it's really, we decide this first, and then already there is a work to be done by creating the first version of the assistance for different communities, identified use cases that could be useful, and then decentralizing it just to see how it is going to work. But for us, I think in the end, we always use different models for different purposes, seeing which one works the best.
No, it's interesting to see that centralized because we're not there yet, but it's something we're also looking into. You mentioned the legal challenges, the contracts with the ChatGPT and different providers. So in this case, you have a central team that deals with that, and everybody else is just leveraging the AI that is.
And I think it was actually a big driver for the adoption. Like today, we have 80% of people using it weekly, so it's really well adopted across communities, across all communities. I think definitely that was a big driver that we just said, okay, everything is there ready for you to play. You don't need to think about this type of aspect. So definitely we provided guidance. So what you can ask, what is there, it's already safe to use. What is not there, don't try, because it's not worth it, let's say.
And you mentioned you have some personalization as well. How do you manage to do that with GenAI? You are using Dust as well, or how do you doing personalization?
Personalization, I think this is still the hard one, but it's definitely, for example, for this year, we have identified it is a big thing. For example, for the sales side, it's already quite advanced, personalization of the narrative, of the messaging. Again, that could be based on the information that is available specifically for this account. If we put it more precisely, before contacting a company, we would actually collect the summary of this account based on the information that is available in Salesforce. So they will just share the name or the link, and it will provide them the past exchange history, certain data points, some people that they met, industry, certain news from the web. So basically there, and then they could launch the second assistant that will be the icebreaker, the suggested email that would already include certain of the points from the past. And then as we proceed down the sales pipe, same when it happens, for example, your first exchange meeting happened, then you have a meeting transcript that collected information. You have a meeting recap done with AI, and eventually that allows you to personalize the follow-up of the email. So I think sales side, we see that it is possible. Marketing side, we have tried quite some use cases around email campaigns and so on, but I think for the moment it's still not there, because we are a bit blocked by our tools around the campaigns, because I think that if the tools would personalize within the tools, it would work, but for now we don't see that. But for example, we are using it more and more around the customization of in-product content. For example, we have at Alan healthcare programs and content within the app, and again, to produce more of the content and to recommend the best content, we use Gen AI to actually analyze different parts, like what would be the best content to recommend for this specific account based on the information that you have.
Okay.
On personal, I mean, we also do a lot of that. It's different. It's also not B2B. What we're trying to do is do targeting in email. Probably a slightly different scale. How many emails did we send a year? Over 1 billion emails, anyway.
Yes.
So we try to personalize that. I think one of the hypotheses that we had is Gen AI could potentially unlock in the creative process could generate more variability that would enable a model to create more personalized communication through email. So I don't know if it's something you have seen. Does that enable you to create more varied content that then can enable personalization? Is that something you have observed?
I'm not sure 100% I understood the question. For me, personalized emails at scale, I don't think this use case we have cracked. It's not yet the case. I think it's still complex.
It's
If you did, please share.
We're trying.
it's interesting because I think we were watching like a video from Amazon. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, and they were talking about democratizing like the email creation, right? And it sounds like what you guys have done, leveraging the assistants and the AI, is almost at this point anyone can kind of create new creative or can create new information to put out to the world. Certainly one of the challenges we have is that, and I think this is where you are as well, is the existing technology just isn't capable to kind of work with that many messages or creatives or audiences or whatever else. So we often find that we're having to work around some of our, I hope that we have a very good best-in-class tech stack, but it's just that the surge in Gen AI over the last year and a half, 2 years, has basically meant that we can explode the amount of messages, but it's
But
not
I think
manageable.
it's inevitable and it's an opportunity first. If leaders actually act on this opportunity, that will be great. If they don't, there will be new leaders probably that will come that will enable a bit more this personalization, because I agree today in the world today it's very sad to be limited by your own tools that's supposed to be best in class, but I agree that today we are a bit in the same setup, that if there is a limitation, it's mostly the stack that is not allowing us to be as flexible as we want to be.
So something that I think is interesting at the minute, especially for people who are very close to AI and Gen AI, and there's a point at the minute where you can tell that something has come from Gen AI, right? And wasn't a full photo shoot led with a ton of post processing and things like that. There was an interesting, I don't know if this came to France, but in the UK there was and in the US there was the new Coke advert, the new Coca-Cola advert that was the holidays are coming, the truck is coming, and it's they'd added in a bunch of AI elements, and there was some interesting kind of backlash initially from the marketing community saying like, oh, I can tell it's AI, it looks terrible, things like that. But actually from the let's say the average person on the street, there's still, they don't see that, right? They don't see that it's AI generated or not. So I think we're at an interesting part on the marketing side right now where we almost seem to care more about whether something is AI or not than necessarily like the end consumer, the people who will actually buy from us.
But should we? Like, why do we care?
I don't know.
I personally think we shouldn't care, because in the end, if the campaign is a success, I would say it's great if it was made with AI, because it means that it was less costly for the company, and they adopting new technology. So I personally, every time when I notice that it's AI that made them, oh, okay, good. It's more positive. At the same time, I think when it becomes a problem, when it's something that is like going out of control, some situations that we already discussed, that bias, for example, again, like we cannot just let AI do things, because we cannot say that the AI doesn't have bias at all. Still like all these images like around the perception. So I think this is important, just to still have this reality cross check.
Yeah. Did you see anything internally in terms of I don't know, like that human element of people pushing back, that like, oh, you're automating my job or whatever, I've been working in creative for 20 years or things like that? Did you see anything, any kind of human side like
For sure, the overall transition from 0 to 80% adoption, it was a journey, definitely, that didn't come from one day. It was a lot of effort, a lot of push, and as I said, it's really first starting centralized and strong with a big buy-in from the leadership team, with a vision shared constantly, communication. So really to have the whole company understand that, okay, that's the direction. You don't have a choice. You have to. We expect from you. So in a way, a bit this, and then top down was helping because overall the objectives were already set. For example, again, the focus was a lot on sales community for us as a company because of the obvious reasons that this is the driver. But again, the objectives around the effectiveness and the business planning was done with 30% productivity increase in mind, meaning that all business objectives and how much we actually can do, it was already in the objectives. And us marketing, we were concerned by it as well, with the number of leads, with everything. So in the end, we didn't have a choice to adopt this because they already accounted that at least like 20% of the productivity will be increased thanks to AI. If it doesn't, then you cannot do your job. And then bottom-up approach with ambassadors, dedicated references, that really helped again, because in the end, I think when you have this push from the top, and then definitely there are people who are scared that, okay, I'm old, I don't want to do this, I like to do the things that I'm working on today, and it works, why should I change? So there is a lot of fear, but then you go bottom-up with ambassadors who actually start sharing their own experience. Look, I did this. It was super easy. That's how it worked. And for us, that was, again, the key. When people hear people like themselves, like account executive or marketing person sharing their own stories, they understand that it's not that difficult, and then giving them room to play. As I mentioned already, hackathons, we did a lot of different internal possibilities for people to actually test the technology, interact with each other, create their own assistant, and then they see, okay, that's actually cool and fun, and it saves time, so I'm going to use it every day.
Okay. Do you have any question about? Okay. Question online. Okay, this screen is very, very, very little. She was wondering about what kind of KPI you especially follow to monitor the efficiency of the marketing campaign using AI versus not using AI.
That's a very good question, and I think that's already has a part of the answer inside it, because when we talk about marketing impact on efficiency with AI, it's super hard to measure because we do different things. And for me, it's really should be measured on the campaign level and on the basically initiative level. And then we could already measure something, and definitely time. That's the first one. How much time it takes you to do it with AI, without, what is the delta? You could then transform delta into your cost if you want to have the dollar value. And then of course, also the return in the end, like basically the example of the ads, I think that was very obvious. So, okay, it took us this amount of time, but also it took us cost. For example, if we would work with a design freelance, that would cost us this amount. Without design freelance, that would cost us different, nothing, or just yourself. The delta is your AI gain, plus performance. Again, as I mentioned, it's not only for AI ads, it's not only delivery, but it's also performance. We really see that these type of more engaging materials, they attract more attention from the members. So we believe that there is certain, like, I mean, I said 30%, but in the end, it's, for now, we see on average, indeed, there is increased performance as well.
Okay, 30%. So, okay. Okay, thank you. Any last question? Or we move on? Thank you very much, Kristina.
Thank you.
I will give you, which one of you? You.
Yeah.
Take this one. Up. Let's go. Good.
Yes. So we're going to talk slightly about different topics, but related, because it's also data and AI. We're going to talk about our domain and what we do in the domain in general, and how do we use data and AI to help our marketing teams. But before we do that, is it working? There you go. We're going to talk about something kind of core principles. The first one is data as a product, and kind of how it shaped how we work today and how our teams are structured and how we deliver value through data. A little bit very quickly about our teams, and then obviously we need to have a slide about Gen AI, so we have one. And then hopefully questions, right? But before, do you want to say a few words about Vistaprint?
Yeah, so Vistaprint, for folks who don't know or aren't familiar with us, so we have over 10 million customers. We're live in 20 countries. We were actually founded in 1999 here in Paris as Bonne Impression.
Good, very good
That's
French.
that's the French from me for tonight. Let's say like our USP or our specialization is around marrying together e-commerce and manufacturing in the space of personalized print. So the folks at HymaNight were very, let's say, gracious to say that some of the roller banners, some of the merchandise that you guys have,
The mugs.
the mics have
Mugs.
the mugs have came from Vistaprint, which is awesome. We also do lots of different products. So we started in business
We're very
cards.
prepared.
Yeah, we started in business cards. That was really good at getting us kind of growth. Anyone who saw us on TV 20 years ago, you would have seen us as being the business card people. Actually, our ads that are running now start with, you probably know us for business cards, but did you know we print lots of other things? So we actually have a couple of T-shirts for you guys as well. So you can represent our domain. And yeah, as we've diversified our product mix, so when we just sold business cards and lots of different types of business cards, that allowed us to really hone in on let's say like a streamlined manufacturing machine. Mouloud and I were in our European plant last year now, and you can see that our, let's say like our USP and our let's say like where we're a class leader is still around the manufacturing side. On top of that, the fact that we started in e-commerce means that we've been, we've got a wealth of experience in terms of how to translate different designs, how to make those designs come to life on different print products.
Yeah, just to add that there's also another part around, let's say, digital products to manage your social media, potentially design logos, and basically every design need that you may have. Our target is small, let's say small and medium businesses like Imaya. So our strength is still in print, and you can see we print that's our campaign, right? So we print anything you may need, but also stepping into more needs from small businesses. So that's Vistaprint, if anyone has a question about Vistaprint, but we can move to, there you go. To kind of what I wanted to talk about, kind of our journey with data and data as a product. This is also the data product management meetup, right? So I thought that was on point. So who knows what data mesh is? I feel like we don't talk too much about data mesh. Who knows? Okay. I see a few hands, but I think it came in 2019, right? The article from ThoughtWorks in Martin Farrell, you can see the link there. That introduced this kind of, I guess that was somewhat novel, that data is a product and data is about delivering value and not just about delivering data, as data teams used to do, like we deliver tables, dashboards, or whatever. But the core idea is we want to use data to deliver value to the business, right? There's a few principles. We're not going to go into details today. I just wanted to there's the dates if you haven't seen 2019. We can to see our journey, how it matches to the journey of, let's say, data mesh, and then you'll see in a minute the product in general. But yeah, so we actually before we go that, one thing that I do like about data as a product and data mesh concept in general is this idea that data is at the end a software product, right? I think a lot of data teams invested a lot of, let's say, knowledge and time to figure out how to manage data. And I think originally we did think that data is different from software, right? I think with data mesh, this core idea that you can just basically consider your data products as software products that do have some things that are specific to data, but that just literally enables you to lean to what the software engineering industry has learned over 50 years, right? So a lot of things we could just reuse, apply, obviously by adapting our processes, adapting our tooling, that actually led to even toolings like DBT and a bunch of tools that basically now enable more and more to consider building a data product the same as building a software product. So that is let's say the core idea that I do like and I try to apply. As you will see in a minute, that what we try to do is get inspiration and not implement things dogmatically. But I did want to show kind of this concept of data product because, as you will see, the way we structure, the way we deliver, that's kind of one of the core concept and principles that kind of shaped how we work. And just also to show, at Vista we hopped in that data mesh boat in 2020, beginning of 2020. So it was like a few months after data mesh appeared. And I would say we probably invested significantly to kind of build the data teams in a data mesh way. What that means is we invested into a data platform, we invested into this role of data product manager, right? And what a data product team, how a data product team would work. And as you may guess, at that time, there was a lot of questions that were not answered. There was an article, there was an idea, right? But then when you try to put it in practice, there was a lot of things that are just blank, right? So we had to figure that out, and we kind of get other inspiration, get other other approaches to kind of to fit what we want to do and how we want to do it, right? But just to show that data mesh was 2019, and at Vista we kind of went into data mesh in 2020.
I'd also just add to that there was a very human element of this, right? Because I remember back in like 2012, 2011, I was working in a data consultancy. I introduced the idea of like analytics sprints, right? Or developing data solutions in an agile way using Scrum, things like that. A lot of the data analysts didn't come from a software background. They didn't understand what that meant. You know, we were in a consultancy, so we had clients. The clients had no idea what the hell we were talking about when we talked about sprints and the idea that they have to, we have to groom and backlog the tickets up front. So that move, as you say, towards data product, it certainly came with, a lot of unanswered questions, but also kind of supporting, guiding, building new ways of working. It meant that a lot of our analysts actually transitioned from being more traditional reactive analysts into a product management role, meaning they had to learn new skills like how to operate across the team, how to understand what's happening in the industry, how to understand product market fit, things like that. So there was a lot of change that we had to go through over the last 5 years to get to where we are now.
And just to say, 5 years later, so that we did invest into a data platform, which as far as data platforms go, I think it's pretty state of the art, as in whatever, Snowflake, Databricks, GitLab, Airflow. So just kind of invested in the underlying platform that then will enable these distributed product teams to deliver value through data, right? And then the other kind of core outcome of that is this concept and idea of data product team. As I said, data mesh was kind of the trigger, the beginning of this idea of data as a product. But at the end, we had a bunch of other influences. So maybe some of you know Empowered from Marty Kagan, right? So that's kind of one other inspiration is also as a company, we went to this transformation into the empowered product team model, but we also wanted to get that influence and get what works best in the empowered model to our data teams. There's obviously agile. Obviously it was a hype. It was everything that everybody needed to do, and then now not so much. But on the concept of multiple influences, no dogmatic implementation. There are a lot of good things in Agile. I think if you take the core principle, the Agile Manifesto, that's still very valuable. That helps the teams deliver, be incrementally get better. So that's what we want to, what we try to actually get the best of each one of these, right? Obviously OKRs, everyone struggles with OKRs, but I don't know, I haven't found anything better. So if anybody has, let us know. But we do need to kind of measure our progress, figure out set goals, right, with measurable outcomes. So that's kind of how we do it. We're probably not good at it, but I think that's fine. It helps us. It helps us do get better. And obviously, as I talked about it, the data mesh, right? So, but our focus is how do we get better at delivering value, right? And we use whatever new approach, new thought that comes into the industry, and we figure out how to adapt to that. One core principle also in the data product team is it's cross-functional, right? That was, let's say, probably the biggest shift in data teams, this concept of cross-functional teams, which again was something that software teams have been doing for a while, right? But we are no longer have the data engineering team, the data science team, or the analytics team. We have product teams focused on specific problems within a domain. Like our domain is marketing optimization. We're here to talk about data and AI for marketing. That's exactly what our domain is focused on, is what our teams are doing. Our teams. So this is kind of our domain in a nutshell. You don't need to read anything. I'll try to walk you through it. But just to give you,
We do have cool names. So that's something that we made sure. The marketing optimization data product teams had to be marketable, right? That was something that we had to make sure.
We did some branding. I think we did generate some of the logos, to be honest. So yeah, applying our own tools. But just to say, kind of our teams, we have what we call data product teams. So 4 teams. I'm not going to go into details, but we have teams that focus on, we talk about personalized marketing communication and content optimization. That's what you were talking about earlier around personalization. Our goal is to do it at scale, right? So the idea is to make sure that whatever communication we send to our customers through email, heavily focused on email so far, but also on site or whatever we reach customers, for that to be personalized and relevant. So that's the NBA team, not to be confused with basketball. It's next best action. And then we have CTAP. That's a great name again. But that team is just focused on managing the customer data and enriching the customer data. We have a customer database. We want to know more about the customers. We predict stuff about them, like we want to know which industry they are based on their behavior, on what they do on our site, right? They also do the recommendations, like product recommendation or any kind of personalized recommendation. So their goal is, we have our customers. Our problem we want you to solve is, how do we know more about our customer and how do we recommend them the best option for within our catalog, right? And then we have, let's say, the other side of marketing, which is media and paid media, and that's Space. The Space team, the problem they're solving is, how do we optimize our spend in paid media, right? We have a significant budget in paid media, and we want to make sure that every dollar we spend gets us the most. Gauthier, who's here, is probably very aware of that and always thinks about that. But what we try to do is build some tools, some automated tool to help them do that the best way we can. And then we have FOMO, and that team is focused on, is kind of the omni-channel team. So as we do, you see most of these teams are thinking like a channel specific, or let's say own channel versus paid channels. And FOMO is like, how do we bring that all together? Thinking about omni-channel measurement and optimization, just around channel performance or even omni-channel performance, and budget allocation with marketing mix modeling, right? I don't know, you want to talk about ad tech?
Yeah, so anyone who's working in marketing right now knows that one of the big challenges is around the platforms and the partners. So working with Google, working with Meta, working with Pinterest, a bunch of other people. The platforms are all very unique. The way that they want data is very different. The way that they get optimized is very different. Ad tech's role is basically to make sure that we have the right level of measurement, we're passing the right level of data between the product feeds, between the way that we use conversion tagging, things like that. They also look at the way that we're kind of presenting the imagery. So that's where some of our Gen AI in terms of like product images and so on lives. And Omni Analytics is our cross-functional analyst team. So the idea is they're always the hope is they're always 2 or 3 steps ahead of where
they are.
where our product teams are at a given moment. So they're leveraging all of the things that are available across the data products, but they also are able to write advanced SQL, build advanced visualizations. They've also been working, for example, in causal inference analytics libraries, or geolift libraries when we want to compare across different countries or different states in the US.
So yeah, just to summarize, what we try to do in the domain is kind of deliver three things. Reporting and insights, right, as much as AI is cool, obviously, but I think that's still a strong foundation that we do need, and we need to continue to invest. That's the data foundation, but also the visualization and the insights that we provide through that. So across all these teams, they do own some kind of reporting or insight that we provide to the marketing teams. And then the second focus, which is going to be the deep dive that Drew is going to go through in the next talk, is around measurement in general. That's kind of the never-ending marketing problem. How do we measure marketing performance, right?
Which half of my spend is wasted in marketing?
We'll talk more about that in a minute. And then the other part, which I guess kind of follows the AI that Kristina was talking about, is how do we leverage AI in general, ML and AI, I do want to add ML there, to drive improvement in efficiency. You talked about efficiency, but also effectiveness. You also talked about how that improved the performance of the ads, and also relevance in terms of personalization. So that's kind of what we try to do within the domain, and how
what we do.
What we do, right? Yeah, and the teams and the structure, how we deliver this through our teams. And what about Gen AI? Right? I did promise a slide about Gen AI. So let's say Gen AI is really broad topic. I tried to think about how to structure this, the impact of Gen AI, right? Because I think there are probably two sides. I mean, there may be more, but at least in my mind, two sides. One is the underlying technology. That's the LLMs, right? The foundational models. That's the actual breakthrough. And that in itself will already disrupt a lot of what we already do in terms of product recommendation, in product of search for the site, in terms of image generation. So everything that a lot of data teams and ML teams have been doing for years, a lot of that is going to be disrupted in LLM, just either by making it a lot easier, right? Or just disrupting the state of the art, right? And one example is just much better embeddings. I don't know if we have technical people here, but a lot of models use embeddings, and with LLMs today, and even small ones, right? Tiny LLMs that are not big, so we can actually process them and run them. They can generate much better embeddings, and that by itself will improve a lot of models, a lot of typical classification, any kind of classical ML will automatically get better. So it's something we do need to explore as things that we have been working for a while. We probably need to revisit in the world of LLMs, because they can potentially be significantly better, right? Recommendation engine, I think recommendation is going to be disrupted in probably multiple ways. One of them is just how we consume recommendations, right? We potentially chat-based recommendation. Someone types, "Hey, I want to do this, this, and that," and we need to show them recommendations. So the chat element of it, and then the underlying approach of generating recommendations is going to be disrupted by LLMs, as in probably made better, but that means a lot of teams need to revisit solutions that they have built, right? And then I talked about LLM-based search, search like a site search, and even forecasting, right? There's Time GPT and different forecasting, LLM use cases for forecasting. So a lot of what we used to do, and we still do, is going to be disrupted by LLMs. In a positive way, right?
Just on that as well, I think something that's interesting is like the baseline is almost moving, right? So if you go and set up if you built a website 10 years ago, you had to manage your own product catalog, you had to manage your own search, you had to embed Google search or whatever else. You spin up a Shopify account now, and you connect it into Google Ads, you're already probably using a wide range of AI and LLM-based solutions. Something that's interesting for companies that have been around for, let's say, 26 years, is that anyone who spins up a new business now is effectively already leveraging a lot of that kind of like cutting edge tech that Mouloud talked about. So this route to adoption, which is why I was asking around like how did you drive so much adoption so quickly? That route to adoption is almost like we have to do that. It's not about building a competitive advantage. It's about actually just keeping up with what everyone else is leveraging. And Mouloud had a really good point when we were talking about this 2 or 3 months ago, what our competitive advantage becomes, being a company with such a strong heritage, is actually our customers and our data. So leveraging these new technologies will be amplified and multiplied by the fact that we have such a strong understanding of where our USP is and our customers and the underlying data sets that we have.
Yes, and then as I said, that's one side, and then the other side is I think that's everything you showed, Kristina, earlier, right? Is how these use cases and application will disrupt the industry. Here I meant marketing, but it's probably broader than that. I think for marketing, in the way, let's say, AI media in general, people just using ChatGPT for search or Gemini or whatever the AI models, is going to redefine how we optimize and measure paid media in the near future, maybe faster than we expect, I don't know. And then the other part is, again, you showed a great example of how automated marketing copy and imagery can be unlocked at scale, right? Which I think we're never really sure if that was a viable approach, which I feel like it's becoming more and more. And I feel like what you're saying is it is already a viable approach, right? So that's one way that let's say Gen AI will impact us. And then overall LLM assisted tasks. Here I specifically talked about coding and even insight generation with LLM assisted, let's say, SQL. So a lot of the way we used to do things might change, but also I think you mentioned that as to enhance humans and not to replace them. I think we're probably going to be faster, but we do need to learn and we do need to lean into that transformation. Having said all of that, I just wanted to add one key takeaway, which is data quality and governance is just becoming 100x more critical than it ever was. I mean, it was always important, but now actually the assets, the core that will enable the success of all of that is actually the data. So we do need to make sure we do have a good, robust way to manage data quality and governance of usage, both of the AI, but also data. So that just to remind that it's something we still need to manage. I think we can pause here if I have questions.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can start. Thanks so much for sharing. Super interesting. I learned a lot, especially for the first part. So maybe just a couple of questions so I understand better how it exactly is structured and works. Maybe could you, for context, put how many people are we talking about overall in the data team and in each of these boxes, and maybe percentage of total or compared to marketing product teams, how is it?
So this is just our domain, right? So the data team is a bigger organization, but our domain is 45 people, right?
Marketing related.
This is for marketing, yes.
And basically for data, you have different, like there is someone working more on the product. What are other teams?
Sorry, can you repeat the
So
question?
basically you have a group working more for marketing related problems, but then the rest is more following standard data approach, or what is this?
No, most all the domains in the data team are following a similar approach. Yes.
Yeah, so we have, for example, like a customer care data team, data domain. We have
Okay.
a manufacturing data domain.
So by each process has a dedicated data team.
Yeah.
That sounds like magic. Honestly, really, really cool. Okay, and then so basically, as from what I understood, you don't change. People build expertise within each of the scope, and then if you want to go to manufacturing, just because you have transferable skill set, you can, but normally you don't.
Well, yeah, we try to build long-lived teams, right? That's all from the empowered product teams concepts, right? You need people to understand the problem, so they need to stay with the problem for enough time to do that. So, yes, that's definitely one of the things we try to do. But we also allow people, if they're interested in a new topic or a new line of work, they can obviously rotate into that. But the teams and generally the structure of the team does stay pretty stable, and we try to make sure that happens.
And actually, one of the on the tech stack slide that you flashed up, one of the great things about that transformation we went on as DNA at the time, now with Vista Engineering, was that it's a standardized tech stack. So anyone can move around. The manufacturing team can use our marketing data. I'll talk a little bit about this in terms of like data reuse, but the fact that everything, fundamentally everything lives in Snowflake. Any team can tie into any other team's data. That's one of the components of data mesh, and that enables a lot of cross-team collaboration. Potentially also, as you say, like people's own career developments, moving into different spaces, different areas, and something that's great, let's say, is that it gives a common language for data professionals to talk across a lot of different specializations of data science, data engineering, analytics engineering.
And could you, for example, I think at the moment for us, it's more product team who is dedicated to a specific problem. It's not a marketing problem, it's a generic problem. And then there are dedicated resources, marketing, that is part of the product team or product crew, how we call it. And then the data becomes part of this specific crew. How would you compare these two models? And when you have a dedicated data person embedding in the team, cross-functional team, versus having a dedicated data or marketing team?
That's a very interesting question. That was also an internal debate for a while to kind of define the lines, right? I think generally the way we think about it is, at the end, these are cross-functional teams, right? And then if they go into side of data or just whatever regular software teams, that doesn't change much. But the way we try to think about it is, for a team to have embedded data people, maybe let's say a data scientist or ML engineer, their problem they're solving inherently has some ML component, right? So whatever. So the team that's working on the site search, they will have to do some kind of modeling, some kind of ML-based search, right? Or recommendation, obviously. So that's let's say typical software product teams, and then they have data people embedded in them, and then they have also product analytics, which is different, right? But we have product analysts that live within the teams, but their job is more to support the team and the product manager in terms of like insights and figuring out what problem to solve next and measure whatever experimentation. And then for our teams, what we focus on is data-enabled problems, right? So you can see here, most of the problems they shared are inherently data problems, so that's why they're data product teams. So that's kind of the line. That's where we draw the line, but it's a bit blurry.
And could you share, just for an example, some of the objectives, like in the OKRs that you mentioned? What exactly, like, were you working on?
Yeah, sure. So across the entire domain, I mean, our main focus areas are around relevance, content, and measurement. Each team then kind of layers into that in a different way. For example, if we want to look at the way that we automate like our bidding in programmatic space, so in media, we have 20 countries. We have lots of different product categories. We bid in lots of different ways. We have lots of different channels, right? So what we want to support our media marketing team with is like how do we automate that? How do we produce better forecasts? How do we potentially, for example, increase the coverage of the spend that we're touching? So like a past objective a year ago was how much spend is MMM actually controlling, for example, in FOMO? How much is it bringing in? We moved that from, I think it was like 20% to like 99, I would say now. We still have some partners who don't send us spreadsheets and whatever on time, and it's bad that they're using spreadsheets at all. They should have APIs. But there's definitely a view around coverage, kind of impact in terms of like the decisions that we're making, and then actually just the data quality, which Mouloud talked about. If we don't have the right spend data in our MMM model, or if we don't have the right conversions in our programmatic model, or if we don't have the right content tagging in our content targeting models, then we can't do a good job, basically. So we do try to kind of triangulate across those three different areas.
But does it mean that you also own partially the operations part? Because in the end, like, to have good quality, you need to set up the everything.
This is where I think having we're a big company, right? We're like probably around 3,000-4,000 people actually sitting working in terms of like working on Vistaprint, the website, and the associated thing. We also have a lot of people in our customer care centers in the manufacturing plants. a lot of the scale that we can afford you know, when we talk about 20 countries, we have a big paid search team, we have a big video and display team, we have a big email team. A lot of it is about collaboration, so making sure you know, if let's say like a particular activation team or a particular country, since Gautier is our performance lead in Europe is here. If they're struggling with an underlying operational problem, one of our jobs is to help automate and resolve that. I can think of like a couple of examples which might be, it's not down to us to determine what kind of conversion tracking or conversion tags that we want to add, or what kind of content we want to build and put in front of customers, but enabling either that to be faster, or that to use more platform capabilities, or that to you know, be ranked more easily, let's say. Those are the areas that we can work and support with them. So one of the areas, I guess, of being a product team is that we have to understand our customers. A lot of the time our our customers are actually internal other parts of the business. Same, for example, if you look at the manufacturing data domain, they have to understand the plant, the machinery, the people who are operating the machinery very, you know, to a high level of knowledge. And that's something that I think is different to more traditional, like, embedded analytics teams, where you're kind of reacting to tickets, right? Like, hey, make me a graph that does this thing, and perhaps you don't have the full understanding of why you're making a graph about machine 14B in the Venlo plant, right? Our embedded teams are actually sitting in the same plant alongside the same, you know, the same teams. We're part of the marketing QBRs, we're part of the marketing all-ins, we're part of the marketing, you know, half-year business reviews and so on.
Yeah, I mean, the way we think about it is those are actual our users, right? As a product team, those are the users that for which we need to solve problems through the products we're building, right? And then let's say in terms of, if I understand the question more broadly, like how do we measure the impact that we're driving, which is a very challenging question, especially for data teams, whoever was in the data team. But the kind of this helps us in more creating focus, clarity. That's the goal, right? And then the measurement, we tried to build some kind of framework, which is kind of different types of metrics, what we call experience metrics, output metric, like a metric tree. I don't know if you're familiar with this concept. So we have what we call business output metrics. So this is overall potentially something happening. So we have, let's say, what overall business metric we could impact, right? We have budget allocation that we help the teams allocate the budget, but eventually we're hoping that will help improve our marketing efficiency ratio overall, right? So that's kind of the goal, but we're not going to achieve it directly, we'll achieve it through other teams. And then we have what we call experience metrics. This is more the experience of our users and how do we make their lives easier, right? And then we also have more operational metrics, more on the quality of the things we do. That's just like whatever the cost of operations, or even the quality of the models, if we have a recommendation and things like that. So that's how we try to measure it at different levels. But as I said, it's a challenge. It's challenging. So we're trying to get better at it. I wouldn't say we solved it, but we definitely something we continue to try to solve.
It's something at some point you said around like reusing different industries, right? So for example, we survey our own customers, which you know, to get to like an NPS or promoter score. We're basically taking a lot of learning from marketing, a lot of learning from you know, product, software engineering. I want to say kind of like things that have been around longer than you know, data as a product, right? So we're trying to bring in and infuse a lot of this. These things that work really well for other people, right? If surveying works really well for marketers, I don't see why it shouldn't work well for our data product teams. It is a challenge sometimes, as Mouloud said. You know, we're always kind of one step removed from the ultimate decision making in terms of like the strategy of what we want to execute in a different country or what we want to execute in a platform. So we have to find metrics that ladder up to ultimately some better decision making. And then kind of be happy that we were part of that decision making, and that you know, we get that representation at that point.
Yes, you're right, Mouloud. There is an online question about the specialization. They want to to understand how do you ensure that the people with the product team are improving in their core skills, and how they are leveraging the work of and expertise about with the colleagues of the same expertise. I'm not sure about the same expertise. Maybe it's the other expertise as well, but.
I've tried to repeat how I understand it, but I mean, I think I understand where it comes from because that's a challenge we had. It's more when you're cross-functional, right? Typically, when you're in a data engineering team, you're within data engineering experts, more senior people, you learn from them, right? And if I understand correctly, within a cross-functional team, we typically lose some of that, right? And that's true, generally, right? So we favor this, what we want to focus on is we're biased towards the team owning the problem and delivering to the problem. And in this case, let's say in terms of learning and development, career growth, and learning from your peers within the teams, right, is probably little less than if you're, let's say, within a data science team and then you have all data scientists together, right? The way we let's say counterbalance that is through building communities within our domain and outside our domain. We have guilds. That's again not a new concept. That's something we're just reusing. So we have like a data science guild, analytics community. We have the data ops say community. So we try to create that outside of the direct teams basically to create the forum for that learning and that collaboration to still happen outside the day-to-day. But also within the teams, we typically have, let's say, a senior person from each one of the functional areas, right? So as a lead, as someone who can mentor within the team on a day-to-day and create those forums outside of the team for people to learn and to learn from each other. And well, we used to do that a lot at Xebia, and I think Himaya still does that, right? This kind of I don't know, I'll let you talk about it, but monthly sharing sessions. But I think that's a very important part of delivery, actually. We don't think about it that way, but that it does enable better delivery and better outcomes.
You spoke about the prompting tips, and you are using this kind of stuff also as well in Alan to improve together and to share knowledge together about.
Not sure.
No,
No, I'm not sure I get
when you spoke about the tips you are sharing with the prompting and upskilling
Yes.
together, and are you doing stuff like that as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think for us today, there are two parts. So first one is really the upskilling AI initiatives, more driven top down, and it depends more on the new innovation that is embedded into the company. For example, it could be the improvement in image generation. Like for now, we will plan like more to go to the video from image, and we want to make it also more easily available to all the learners. So probably there will be some upskilling around that track, or some new tools. It could be automation platform, for example, we built internally, because for us what we see is that actually combining the two, AI and automation, that is where the value is getting unlocked. So for the next year, we want people to be more autonomous by actually building solutions combining the AI and automation. And then there are initiatives more around the functional AI use cases that are more driven by the reference within the community. So for example, that's my area around the use of AI for marketers to be more autonomous on the insights, and overall for marketing use cases, for example, for the product team to be able to go anytime and to get some insights that they want to have. So I wanted to share a bit more because I find it very interesting, like what you shared as one vision, let's say data, and definitely I think it sounds as a dream for me today to get the data person allocated to my problems and marketing. But yeah, context is definitely very different. So for us, just for comparison, right, at Alan now we are 600 people, and we have more than 600,000 members to manage. So it's a lot. Like marketing, we're a bit more than 20, so it's dense, let's say, and the approach overall is very decentralized, meaning that we aim to as you already noticed, overall, everything is decentralized. This is Alan culture, and I think that's why actually AI worked a lot, because from the beginning, distributed ownership was big on the agenda, so people are actually believed to try by themselves and do this. And then we have plus written culture and transparent communication. So we have this data to play with, as you can imagine, that not all the companies are lucky to have. But then, example of the data team, I wanted to share how data is transformed at Alan. It's going very different directions, so definitely they also work on the business or company objectives by being embedded into their holistic crew, as I mentioned before, but they still have to allocate certain amount of bandwidth to what we call on-call questions. That is what you described. Okay, help me to measure effectiveness of this machine. Well, we don't have machine, but you got me. Help me to measure something, get information that I need for my evidence proof for this account of return on investment. That's a very common example. But what is happening today with our data team is that they're decentralizing data. So the whole vision of the data team is that we don't want to do this anymore, and you guys can do it. You are smart, please go ahead and do it by yourself. So we do have assistants that are developed and that have been developed, improved a lot over the last year, because like I can tell you around, for example, SQL. I do not know and love SQL, but we have to use it because that's the instruction. So everyone, if you want, so we have Metabase as the data infrastructure, and again, very often you need to pose your questions in the SQL format just to play around if you actually want to get there. And so what I do as a marketer, I use SQL assistants that guide me to build my own queries, to get my own information. I, of course, describe it in my own words, what I want, and then it starts building, and I test. So I do not understand what it gives me. So basically, I just go there, I copy paste. If there is a mistake, I copy paste the mistake, and 3, 4, 5 max times it works. Like it works, and then so the agreement today with the data team, you try first, you show your thread, the Dust AI thread, and then they help. If it still doesn't work, they help. So that's completely different approach, and I'm curious to hear your take on it, if it's something that would be a reality for you as well or not.
Yeah, it's not that different. It's just the scale is probably a little bit different. But let's say we want the teams to focus on the longer term problem, right? And invest into solving that incrementally over time. But we also do get these kind of, let's say, ad hoc requests. We need this at this time, right? And the teams do that, and sometimes a lot, right? And I do understand your data team telling you to try first. Definitely, I'm on the other side. But the idea is to find the right balance, because some things are critical, some things we need to manage. But whatever time you invest in that short term answering that specific question is time taken away from solving potentially the longer term problem. So that's what we need to, let's say, solve. But again, I think that's also where we can, one area where we can learn from software teams, from the way other, let's say, industries have been managing that, because that's similar to, let's say, be an on-call strategy for software teams or bug resolution. That's also like, how do you manage the team's time to invest more in delivery, in product delivery, in the OKRs, versus maintaining what you have, continuing the operations, which is obviously important because that has to happen. And the question that you're asking might be actually critical for today. So we still need to answer that. So it is a balance to find, but it's not easy. And to answer your question, we also do have that, and we do need to manage that, let's say, that balance between day-to-day ad hoc question answering operation versus investing into the future.
There's like an interesting thing around marketing, which I think of any, let's say, like profession over the last like 10, 20 years. I feel like the data transformation on the marketing side has been, immensely visible, right? Let's say, like, with all of this new data, like high quantity data sets that we get from Google or Meta or whoever else, There's definitely like this modern marketer role. Not sure every marketer needs to know SQL, but like there's definitely a
Not anymore. There's just AI.
yes, that's true. Yeah, now you can use the AI assistant. But there's definitely a requirement to be data driven, understand the data, understand how to ask, understand what you're trying to ask. And that's something, on our side, the way that we resolved that, as Mouloud said, maybe it's just a different scale, I'm not sure, but we put out Looker explores. We also have Sheets and Excel integrations to all of our data. Again, that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have a single database that had all of the information in one place. But pretty quickly, you can start throwing together, what do I see in terms of marketing spend? What do I see in terms of like the plant efficiency, the manufacturing efficiency? What do I see across different categories, different customer types? Let's say like that access to data is almost trivial at this point. Whereas, say, 10, 15 years ago, there was still a lot of large, I don't want to say big data, but, large data projects working on how do I get all of these data sets into one place without anyone really knowing how to actually use it. So that's definitely been a big change I've seen in the last 5 years, say.
And I think it's interesting, but at the same time, you're talking from the B2C angle, and I'm talking from B2B
very
angle and
different, yes.
B2B2C angle, which is making things even more complex. So for me, there is still a lot of improvement that could be done, but definitely it comes with focus, and we are on the direction of becoming data-driven. But our marketing team right now is, let's say, building up. So we are following you probably, I don't know, a couple of years behind in a way how to set up the actual data-driven marketing for us. It's not yet that obvious and easy, let's say.
Yeah, that's something I think we sometimes forget being in e-commerce, is that we get all of this data effectively for free because we own the website, right? If we were Coca-Cola, we'd still be having to deal with a lot of like manual databases coming in from different supermarkets or whatever else to try and figure out how to connect this.
We still get those from some marketing partners.
Yeah.
I think it's a new way of working, this example. I never seen someone who doesn't know anything about SQL and, okay, you put your error and do it again. And I think we will see that more and more with the time, but definitely very new for me to have this do it like that. It's very new.
But I think just in general, for me, the AI transformation at work, it allows people to be autonomous and it's independent of the function. So we see exactly, so this on-call being eliminated or at least cut by 1/3, like on average for all the functions we have on call, that is cut by 1/3 because actually AI is solving the requests. And for example, at Alan, we have decentralized of course, recruitment and coaching. And before it was a lot of talent on call to ask questions about the way to recruit, to manage, and so on. Now it's all automated with AI assistants. And of course, there is the first level if the information is actually correct and the people are satisfied, that is solved, and it's 1/3 of the cases. If not, then there is a person who is intervening. And same for us marketers. For me, it's exactly the same. When sales before, they would be asking me, okay, Kristina, how do I win over competitor X? Now, thankfully, they don't do that anymore. They just ask, okay, sales coach, assistant, read all of my battle cards, please, and tell me why Alan is the best insurer. So, and they do the same for legal questions, they do the same for insurance expertise. So in a way, I think, and back to your final takeaway, is that everything depends on your data, and data quality is critical. And not only the data that you collect, you mean like really quantitative data sets, but also the context. Because for me, for example, with Gen AI, it's contextual data that actually brings a lot of value. Sometimes maybe for a moment we cannot make all the decisions based on the quantitative data, but combining the both, quantitative and qualitative, around the recaps, emails, public first communication, recaps shared by sales, by marketing, it gives us the full context. And I think for me, where we are not there yet is actually merging the two in a good way together to have this big insights captured. Very practical example. For example, like I analyze my meeting notes. I see what is resonating to prospects. Can I combine the data on the product side, product analytics, to understand how it all mixes together, and then on the CRM? But for now, it seems too complex. I don't know if you manage to crack this type of
Yeah, I
problems.
mean, I think also going back to what you shared at the beginning, right? I think that with AI, there's a lot of things that unlocks, right? But it's not going to just work because a lot of the tools need to adapt. For your personal productivity, you probably will make it work. An assistant, I think, is probably good way. That's also why that's kind of the agent is the first use case that's taking off, because that's, let's say, easier, and it's an individual level. You can connect whatever tools you're using yourself, and the integration is easier. But if you take that to enterprise level, it's not about the capability only, right? It's about how can the capability help you in your context within the tools you have with the seamless integration. So this is the kind of the next step that we need to solve at the enterprise level, and to actually make AI the scale that it could be, right? But the reality is that underlying capability is there today, right? So we do, I mean, I do like your approach where we just go full in, let's explore, find the challenges already, and then figure out how to scale eventually, because we will need to do that, right? It's just now it's more the when than if, right? But it's not going to be, let's say, simple or streamlined, because we do need to adapt. All the existing tools, existing infrastructures need to adapt and need to be integrated for that to actually fully work.
Any question? Not. Let's go on, Mouloud, maybe. Or Drew.
Yep. So I'll jump. Mouloud mentioned like we have a number of different areas we're looking at. We look at measurement. We look at ML, increasing relevance, personalization, things like that. We also look at we have a particular focus around content and like Gen AI content, things like that. But Mouloud talked to some of that. So I wanted to particularly jump into measurement. I tried to demarketize this in terms of like pulling out a lot of the marketing terminology. But I can jump in if we want to talk specifically about marketing as well. So something that Mouloud mentioned was that there's almost like there's almost table stakes now when you talk about data. 10 years ago, it was really hard to get data. There was a bunch of spreadsheets flying around the internet. People didn't have APIs, whatever else, right? Data availability isn't the blocker anymore. Actually, we probably have too much data in a lot of cases. The big blocker is actually interpreting and understanding that data. So when we think of that kind of data that's already been heavily curated, that's let's say not yet table stakes, but that will come soon. There's kind of a thing missing off to the left here, which is like the raw data and the fact that you have to curate it and apply some knowledge to make it actually usable. One of the big areas where people are getting stuck right now is around this interpretation. And that's basically limiting their ability to do reporting, analyses, better forecasting, or even model learning. Going back to the way that we talk about our data product teams, because the data product teams are working in certain contextual areas or problem spaces, that interpretation actually loops back to being curated data. To your point around like how do I link that up to product analytics? Like we really see that in the data mesh world. If someone has done if someone has solved a really hard problem to represent a data set in a particular way, it suddenly becomes available for a lot of other people to be able to tie in and connect into that. So as an example, our website behavioral data, we take that out of Google Analytics, and then we apply a lot of the customer modeling that we do elsewhere in the business, and that actually gets stitched together to give us a more customer-first view of the way that our website's being used. So that interpretation leads to a lot of really good use cases directly for the team, but then indirectly through data mesh and through data product managers and data contracts and whatever else, we can basically reuse the data in lots of other places. Something which I haven't got here that is open for discussion is the daisy chain effect that creates, which Mouloud and I find ourselves in quite regularly, which is something might break right at the very end, and you have to do a lot of investigative work to figure out which part of the daisy chain it was where the actual issue occurred.
Yeah, I mean, this is just typically the data flow used to be like the raw data engineering team, and whoever else is using that data, and then the use case, right? If you break that down by teams focused on a specific case, then it's a mesh. That's why it's called a mesh. So teams using output from other teams. So they might generate a challenge, like if there's some issue, data quality issue, then you kind of have to diagnose the mesh to figure out what's the source of that. And that usually takes multiple teams potentially to collaborate to actually resolve the issue. But that's like the counter effect is the pros for the reason we're doing that, and that's kind of the counter effect that we do need to manage that do happen in a mesh structure.
So like an example for us for marketing, in terms of like optimizing marketing, we don't have to worry that much about actually building a lot of interpretation around the website behavioral data. That's handled by another team, our site and app data product team. They've already kind of highly curated and interpreted the data and made it sensible for us to be able to leverage. So it means that when we tie in marketing data like spend or impressions, whatever else, we can basically suddenly overlap that with information that wouldn't readily be available within the platforms, the marketing platforms themselves. So when we talk about interpretation, it's actually a mix of different techniques. If you follow or subscribe to the Church of Google, then they talk about MMM experiments attribution. One thing that we don't necessarily like about the word attribution is that it's in marketing it often gets let's say it's synonymous with the idea of click-based attribution. So you have a tag or a tracker or something that is following someone clicking on a link. That basically becomes everything that attribution is known for in the marketing world. We also had, over the last 10 years in kind of, let's say, marketing science, there was a advent of, attribution, multi-touch attribution. This is the way to, really evaluate all of your marketing performance. And I think we're going through this new phase of marketing science where people are realizing that probably never worked to the level that Meta and Google would like you to think that it did. But the fact that even Google themselves are saying you have to triangulate between not just attribution, not just what you see in Google Ads or in Google Analytics. You also have to run experiments. You also have to run MMM. Google and Meta both have MMM libraries. Google and Meta both have experimentation APIs to be able to run different experiments. So one thing that when we talk about attribution, ultimately it normally ends up in a graph that looks like this. It's a high moving, let's say it's a high frequency, graph, a lot of quantitative information. So it might be like how many visits did this campaign drive, or how many bounces did it drive, or how many ultimately bookings, or what types of bookings. Bookings as in revenue, sorry. How much revenue did it drive? How many orders did it drive? So what we actually, internally, this is still something that we're working on in terms of like a rebrand, and we're using it mostly with our teams at the minute to talk about trends instead. That also opens us up to data that can't necessarily be attributed through clicks. So we can start talking about impressions or share of search or other interesting things like that. As Mouloud mentioned, we also own product recommendations. So historically, we've talked about product recommendations being, the contribution, which we measure based on people who interact with a recommendations placement over, their visit on the website. And one of the goals is to increase that. We're hoping that moving away from that kind of interaction, click-based, we can start getting an understanding of, people who saw recommendations. We also do a lot of experiments where we, run different holdout groups for either recommendations or content targeting or things like that. This is probably my favorite diagram as a marketing science nerd on the internet, which is this is the way that Google portrays experimentation. So you always have a holdout group, a control group, and a treatment group. Google just assumes, I hope no one from Google is listening, Google assumes that you are going to see the ad, right? So you are going to spend enough money. So Google actually talks about the control group being the people that actually see the ad, and the treatment group being the people who didn't see the ad. Typically for us, we see that the other way around. So when we run our experiments, we talk about the control group, the holdout group, being the people who won't be exposed, and then the treatment group being the people that we will expose, and then we try to measure some kind of uplift across different metrics. And lastly, when we talk about MMM, I find funny because it kind of went through this huge resurgence and everyone had to have an MMM and whatever else. This is a 50, 60-year-old technique, basically to draw a line of best fit. The thing that changed in recent history through MMM libraries, including Robin, including Meridian from Google, whatever else, is effectively that we can do it at scale. So when we talk about drawing lines of best fit, it's no longer a statistician with a pencil and a ruler. It's running multiple thousands of iterations across different drivers. So here you can see like a couple of our channels, like display, for example. So where we see one of the big changes happening in, not just around marketing, but also around any kind of let's say, like product development measurement around things that are exposed to people. We see that there will be a need to continue to use different trends, to continue to experiment, and then also to use statistical analyses like MMM or like anything else to understand correlation and causation. One of the areas that we see probably changing over the next 2-3 years, particularly with the advent of LLMs or potentially, other processing gains that we can start getting, is this idea that we can triangulate through automation. So one of the challenges we have right now is that we get vastly different numbers depending on which one of these three things we look at. We have a media planning team who, bless them, their job is to figure out what the hell is this actually saying between three vastly different outcomes. So if you think, for example, when we talk about click-based attribution, we won't see TV or radio or anything like that in the marketing side. When we think about, the statistical attribution, it really depends on the patterns that we see in spend. And when we think about experiments, it's often a very localized experiment, testing a particular feature or testing a particular audience or something like that. So our media planners today are doing this job of triangulation. We provide them tooling to help make that happen. But we do see the future being this idea of like automated triangulation where there's more information coming from statistical analyses, experiments, they're all kind of getting hooked up together. That's not happening as much yet in the industry across either product development or marketing, but we certainly see that coming in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great example where interpretation is hard, right? Because you do need to look at multiple approaches and understand inherently what the flaws are. Like attribution gives you a number right away, right? We all know it's not accurate because regardless of which attribution model you're using, it's not going to be fully accurate. If it's last click, we all know it's not only the last click. Anyway, it's inherently flawed, but it gives you information right away. So it is still useful. And then MMM, it's an advanced statistical technique that gives you some idea of let's say, contribution. It's directionally right. It just tells you this channel is probably more incremental, is getting you more than this one. But whatever number is coming out of this, you cannot just use and say this is the amount of money. It just tells you kind of comparatively, and you can compare your channels. Experimentation is probably the most accurate, most precise, but it's both, as Drew was saying, it's a point in time. You're an experiment at a point in time, so it gives you that information at a point in time, but it's hard to generalize over time. And it's obviously costly because then let's say you run an experiment and you have a campaign that works. If you have a holdout group of 30%, whatever outcome you got from the actual campaign, you won't get it for that holdout group. So it also costs you money. Let's say you have to understand each one of them. And then when you look at all the three, try to understand, hey, how is my channel actually doing, right? So the interpretation exercise here is very complex. And what we're trying to do is, again, helping the users in marketing to make that exercise of interpreting these kind of three data points easier. and ideally automated. Some way where we can combine these three approaches into, let's say, a way to measure that. That's what we are calling triangulation. So you triangulate these three approaches into one technique that can help you measure, that can give you more accurate and more trustworthy and directionally correct data around channel performance, that you can also use potentially on a weekly basis, because the problem if you use MMM, it gives you directional but long term. So kind of that's let's say an ambition, and today it's we're not there, definitely not. And kind of even looking at the industry, we haven't yet seen kind of a good solution. Typically they want to go into GitHub and trying to find libraries and see if anybody has done it in the past. I haven't found that yet, so if anybody did, please let me know. But it's kind of to this team that is FOMO trying to solve that problem for the marketing team. Here, the problem they're trying to solve is this reducing the complexity of interpreting channel performance data so they can be actionable on the day-to-day, but also help guide the future investments in marketing.
There's a there's also like an interesting like human element of this as well, which is you know, historically, before you had the advent of Google and Meta, you know, people would probably favor, you know, these larger like offline sporting events or conferences or things like that, because they were somewhat measurable either through MMM or through some kind of like you know, causal analysis. As we moved into a more attributed world, and we had like Google Analytics or Google Ads or Meta or whatever, there's been a shift in terms of marketing strategy in the last, say, 15 years, more towards that like highly measurable world. I think what we're seeing now is, you know, marketing go through this third phase where it's really about experiments and how do we run large scale experiments. As Mouloud said, one of the challenges of that is that you always have to absorb some cost of being able to do that. You know, all of this is going on at a time when marketers are already overwhelmed with more data than ever. You know, a much more complex ecosystem that they're operating in. And it's not just marketing that we see this happening with as well, because we also see the same with when we look at like our, you know, the recommendations models that we put out. We see vastly different information in terms of testing, experimenting the models versus what we see when we look at like a contribution trend or like an involvement trend. So one thing I wanted to call out was basically that forcing product teams to think about the outcome that we want to get to. So something that we had historically in a non-data product world, you'd probably have a bunch of teams working on how to think about you know, statistical analysis, and they would basically be briefed with a thing, you know, a particular task, go and tell me whether this thing worked, and they would probably rebuild a lot of the statistical analyses that they would be trying to do. The same with trended information, right? So you probably have the same analyst running lots of things in different ways using trended data or using you know, like historic data. And then the same with experimentation. You might end up with a lot of people rebuilding experiments in the same way or different ways or whatever else. So we're really trying to force the idea of understanding why we're using these techniques. So for us, that larger statistical analysis is understanding the entire program. Trends are, as Mouloud said, fast-moving, reactive. We can see them very quickly. If our product recommendations falls off a cliff tomorrow, we know something's probably broken in the component on the website or in the model, so we can quickly react to that. Same with, for example, our paid media spend or the emails that we're sending. And then lastly, we look at experimentation in terms of incrementally optimizing either at a local level or at a program level to make sure that we're actually driving increases in performance. Where that gets us to by focusing on that is some of the products that we own. So, for example, we take the MMM analyses, looking at all of the marketing spend, and then we basically feed that out into a budget planning tool where people can build different scenarios. So, what would happen if I spent this much in paid search versus this much in display versus this much in TV? That becomes a kind of output forecasting where the business might you know, might operate based on that program optimization. We also provide a bunch of insights alongside that. Our diagnostic and reactive optimization, you know, we feed those into weekly business reviews, whether that's the WBR weekly business review, the monthly business review, the quarterly business review. There's a bunch of information available there. We also have customer trends. We also have this notion of like attributed and contributed data sets. And then when you think of experimentation, we actually have an internal experimentation platform built by was built by our head of experimentation. There's now an entire product team focusing on that platform. We also have an audience platform. We also have some models that we use for targeting either content, time of day sends for email, things like that. So by being able to, instead of focusing on like the cool shiny thing on the left, whether that's MMM or whether that's some ML model or something like that, if we can focus on the middle part of what we're actually trying to do, then our data products can hopefully fit that market need. And then lastly, I just wanted to close that one of the interesting things of doing this and understanding, the part that you're actually trying to solve here, by having teams that understand those interpretation techniques very strongly, you can do some like really interesting and kind of zany stuff. So because in our MMM, our statistical analysis, we have to be able to pull out different different things that will change over time. So that might be like the weather, or it might be competitor information, or in this case, it might be email. So even though we predominantly use MMM as a way to measure spend efficiency in marketing, we can actually also see how much contribution email is actually a particular type here, this is promotional email in a particular country. We can actually see how much that is actually driving performance of the business. Similarly, in marketing, you talk about having like a baseline. We can actually use some of our attributed data to pull out some baseline information to understand how that is evolving over time. So we're using something that should be very reactive and very diagnostic. We're actually using for a multi-year period here in the middle. And then lastly, when we talk about experimentation, typically this is where you have a period of running an experiment for 4 to 6 weeks or whatever the time frame is, and you want to understand what the increase was over that period. The fact that we can leverage that same platform and technology to actually have this kind of notion of always on testing means that we know that any release that we make on as part of our sprint process, we'll actually be able to see if there was a notable change, if we broke anything, if anything really improved. We're able to see that almost real time. The one on the right here is like a 50-50 split, right? We're probably talking about smaller holdout groups, for a lot of our other models. But that's something that it means that not only does the model learn through broader discovery by putting different things in front of different people, it can also actually, through the explore phase, it can also enable us to understand how much better the exploit, like the actual leveraging of the model, is working over sending random or sending nothing. So this is basically just saying that, from a measurement perspective, tying into what Mouloud said, like our focus is on the initial market need, market requirement, a lot of which is internal customers for us, building data products that fit that market need. But by having long-lasting data product teams, you also end up with some really interesting kind of use cases that people, come up with and are able to look at data in a very different way than it was initially intended for. And that was us.
That's it.
Do you have any question to conclude, or is it okay for you?
No, not really. It was quite interesting. A lot of, for me as a marketer, what resonated the most is the third column with the tools. So definitely, if I had that, I would be very happy. So congrats on your work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to you too. Thank you to everybody online. So we will close the live, and we will enjoy the rest of the evening together and have a chat together. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you to you too.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Bye bye.
And thanks for the t-shirt.
Yeah, thank you for the t-shirt. Bye bye.